Welcome back again, Forging friends. We are on the third deck out of this Dark Tidings box. Let's open this up and see what we got today. Untamed, Star Alliance, and Shadows. That is Tad Retreat Lieutenant with an Archon with many limbs and a crown on there with some breadsticks up in the air. It's juggling breadsticks. I really want some Italian food now. All right. Dropping down the Archon card and the Tide card, we are starting with Untamed. We have Way of the Pixie. It's an upgrade. This creature gains Reap, gain 1 Amber. Could be good. Extra Amber is always nice. We've got Reaper's Sow, an action card with play. Choose one, ready and reap with a friendly creature, or give 3+1 power counters to a creature distributed as you choose. Versatile cards. I love cards with multiple effects, and this has 2 really good ones. Nice. Myliobe is a 4-power creature, and while the tide is high, it gains Skirmish, and before a fight, enrage the creature it fights and each of that creature's neighbors. So really good to fight against somebody with taunt maybe, and then whatever it's protecting that might have a good reap ability. It has some good utility. I think that's good. We got 2 of those. We've got Infighting, an action card with play. Each creature deals damage equal to its power to its right neighbor. Could be a good board wipe, depending on what your board looks like. Deepwater Gruin is a 5-power creature with 2 Amber pips, and play Reap. If the tide is low, your opponent gains 1 Amber, but of course you're always going to take the tide before playing this card. All Tied Up is an action card with an Amber pip. Play, if the tide is high, gain 1 Amber, otherwise raise the tide. So there's a 2 Amber card. Waste Not is an action card with an Amber pit. Play, destroy a friendly creature, and draw cards equal to half that creature's power rounding up. Good, we have some efficiency in this deck. That's great. Mushroom Man is a 2-power creature that gets +3 power for each unforged key you have. Great early game card. Early game, this is an 11-power creature right off the bat. Great. Fangtooth Cavern is an artifact with an Amber pip. At the end of your turn, destroy the least powerful creature. We'll see whether or not we can make good use of this. We've got Beach Day, an action card with an Amber pip. Play, return a creature to its owner's hand. If the tide is high, gain 1 Amber. Double utility there. We've got the Blossom Drake, a rare 4-power creature, and it gets +1 power for each artifact in play, and each artifact's text box is considered blank. So that's some really good artifact control right there. You know, if our opponent has a very artifact-heavy deck, we want to protect this at all costs. We have Star Alliance now. We are moving on to Star Alliance. We have Zap, an action card with an Amber pip. Play, deal 1 damage to a creature for each house represented among creatures in play. I guess it could spread out a lot of damage. Shield You Later is a 3-power, 2-armor creature, and it may be played as an upgrade instead of a creature with the text this creature gets 2 armor. So you can give its 2 armor to somebody else. Very versatile, like that. Operative Espion is a 4-power creature with elusive, and when the tide is after a player raises the tide during the turn, they may use a creature they control. So you raise the tide, and you can use a creature off house. It's got some good efficiency there, using cards off house, but it also works for your opponent, so gotta be aware of that. We have CR Officer Hawkins, a 2-power creature that can be deployed and play, gain 1 Amber for each of CR Officer Hawkins' non-Star Alliance neighbors. We want to play him when we have at least 2 other creatures out that are of an opposite house. All right, we have Embervac, an upgrade with play Raise the Tide, and this creature gains at the start of your turn if the tide is high, capture 2 Amber. Wow. See, I like V's abilities where it's not like stealing 2, where it's obvious your opponent's going to take the tide. Capturing 2 might be not as bad as, you know, taking 3 chains for them. So, you know, this is an annoying card. I like that. Putting this on a big body, they can stick around for a while. That can be really, really good. We've got I can never remember how to say this. Teresa, yeah, the 5 is an S. So Teresa is a 3-power creature, and it may be used as it belongs to either of its neighbor's houses, which is great. And may be played as an upgrade instead of a creature with the text, this creature may be used as if it belonged to either of its neighbor's houses. So, you know, we have a lot of versatile cards in this deck. This card can adapt to whatever situation you're in, which is pretty fantastic. I like that a lot. Lay of the Land is an action card with an Amber pip. Play, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them back in any order, draw a card. More efficiency. Love that. Force Field is an upgrade with an Amber pip. This creature gains Reap, ward this creature, some protection. We've got Cheetah, a 3-power creature with elusive, and while the tide is high, each of Cheetah's neighbors gain elusive. Very nice, we got 2 of those. We have a rare Commander Drixgar, a 4-power creature. After an upgrade is attached to Commander Drixgar or one of its neighbors, gain 1 amber. Whoa! And then we have a lot of creatures. We have a lot of creatures that could be turned into upgrades, so that could be a huge play. If we had any archiving, we have ways of drawing cards. We have Way of the Land. I think we have one other way of drawing cards. If we could draw a whole bunch of upgrades and this guy at the same time, we could do a huge amber play in 1 turn. That's really exciting. We'll have to see if we can make a good use out of that guy. We've got Scott, a 2-power creature with Reap, ready and use another friendly creature with the same power as Scott. You may give Scott a +1 power counter or remove a +1 power counter from Scott. So he can give you some more efficiency, and he takes a while to like build up to being able to kind of use some higher power creatures up house. But a great addition. Like to see him. Moving on to Shadows, we have the Seeker Needle artifact. And as an action, you can deal 1 damage to a creature, and if that destroys a creature, gain 1 amber. We got 2 of those. Might actually like to see a bad penny in here, yeah, if it isn't here. One-Eyed Willa is a 2-power creature, and while the tide is high, it gains Elusive and Skirmish, and when she fights, you steal 1 amber. Great little steal card. We have Loot or Pillage, an action card with play, choose 1, steal an amber, or a friendly creature captures 3. So you can either steal 1, or if they're going to forge one of their last keys, you can keep them off key, so that's a great card. And got 2 of those, that's pretty great. Kerwallop is an action card with play, deal 1 damage to each creature, gain an amber for each creature destroyed this way. Fantastic, yeah. Take good care of those really, really small guys. Hornswoggle is an action card with an amber pip. Play, use an enemy artifact as if it were yours. More potential artifact control depending on whether the artifact is a use and destroy kind of artifact or not. Hobnobber, a 3-power creature with action. If the opponent has 6 or more amber, steal 2. Nice, more steals, good. Hard Simpson, a 4-power creature with elusive, and after Hard Simpson is dealt damage, steal 1. If the tide is low, your opponent steals 1 instead. I've never liked this guy super much because, you know, you might be able to play him and then steal 1, potentially. But I mean, he'll come to play exhausted, your opponent takes the tide, all they have to do is attack him, and they steal 1 from you. So he's a hard guy to use. I don't know if I like him very much. You need to combo him with something. We have Whisper, a 3-power creature with elusive. In action, lose an amber, and if you do, destroy a creature. Great utility card. Take care of some major threats there. Little Nif is a 2-power creature with Omega, Deploy, and elusive. And after a neighbor of him fights, steal 1 amber. Very cool. And we have our last card. It is Freebooter Fae, a 4-power creature. When you play her, you raise the tide, and when you reap, if the tide is high, you steal an amber. Man, so a lot of ways to get amber in this deck. I really like the way this one looks. I'll go ahead and get the counts going, and I'll see you at my desktop. Welcome back to my desktop. I have pulled up the deck list here, and I've done the counts as you can see on the left here. We have 19 creatures, and decent number, and so we have 14 amber on the cards, and I counted Drixgar here, Commander Drixgar. I counted him as only 1, considering we only have 5 upgrades in this deck, so I don't know that we'll be oftentimes getting him at the same time as an upgrade, but I think we could probably get at least 1 on him semi-consistently. And I subtracted 1 amber for Fangtooth Cavern because we're not going to be playing that. We have a lot of low power creatures, and it's kind of going to be very anti-synergistic card in this deck, I believe, so I took away 1 amber for that. So 14 total amber, not terrible. Amber control is 7, which is good. The only issue is I think that's still going to be kind of a fault of this deck, is that a majority of the amber control is all in the shadows, right? We have nothing in Untamed to control amber, and we have nothing in the we have 1 thing in the Star Alliance, but potentially we have this Embervac, but this can be worked around by your opponent. So, and then the majority of the amber control we have in shadows is, you know, one-offs. We have the Looter Pillages, which are 1 or 3. I guess those are a bit higher. But, you know, if we want to steal it for more value, it'll only be 1. We have the Hornswoggle, which is, oh, that's not the Hobnobber is what I meant to say, which is 2 amber. It's a little bit slow. It's a slow 2 amber, a slow conditional 2 amber. Hard Simpson, I have a hard time counting him because he could just as easily be amber for our opponent. And, you know, so a lot of these things are just like one-offs or low value. So that's kind of one pretty glaring weakness of this deck already. For artifact control, we have 2, but we have this Blossom Drake, which could be huge. This Blossom Drake it negates all artifacts on the board. So if your opponent has a very, like I said in the opening, if they have a very artifact-heavy deck, it's going to be hard for them to get around it. And then creature control, we have 10, decent amount of damage spreading. Efficiency 4, we've got a couple cards that let us draw, and then we've got a few things that let us go off-house, which is nice. And then no recursion and no disruption. So I've been overestimating a lot of these decks. I like this deck. I think it still looks quite fun. But then, you know, obviously, I mean, we don't have any chains in this deck, so that's nothing to worry about. But obviously, there are some things that really hold a deck back. And I think having all of your Amber control kind of, you know, isolated to one house really limits how much you can, work around your opponent's game plan. So I think that's going to be the biggest weakness of this deck. And if I had to say anything else, I would say that not the most. I mean, it has kind of some really good cards, but the Fangtooth Cavern being a anti-synergy is also going to hurt this deck. So for my SAS guess overall, if you want to make your guess before me, you can, but mine is going to be locked in at a 64. I'm going to go 64. I'm going to go pretty low with this one because I don't think it has enough to warrant a much higher grade, considering, you know, our previous decks we've opened and everything. And, you know, this Drixcar could have made this deck if it had maybe 3 or 4 more upgrades potentially, but you know, that'd probably be a hard sell. It probably would have been a little bit higher if that were the case, but as it is, not super consistent, and it's very centralized around the shadows, keeping our opponent's Amber down. So I'm going to get 64. Let's go ahead and go to Decks of Keyforge. I have the link already copied, and like I said, I put it in a 64. Go ahead and make your guess now, and go ahead. And I clicked on for sale. Import deck. Go ahead and make your guess now, and let's see what we got. 64 right on the dot. That's good. We finally guessed correctly for a deck, and I think I know exactly why. So we have the 1 anti-synergy. I'm guessing that's going to be the Fangtooth Cavern. 13 plus 13 synergy though, which is nice. We have the Amber control, the loot or pillage being the best because we can choose however we want to use it, which is really nice. Hard Simpson counts as 0.8. I don't know if I'd even count that as positive. It seems like a very neutral card to me. For the expected Amber, we're gaining the most from Deepwater Ruin, obviously, and we're losing some from Whisper. Whisper is also very good because, you know, often games you'll want to use him to take care of your opponent's problematic creatures, so losing his Amber that way is probably worth it. But we do lose 0.25 points from this based on that Whisper. We have the Blossom Drink and Hornswoggle, like we thought, for artifact control. Our speed is pretty high. We have the Waste Not, Lay of the Land, Deepwater Gruin loses us some. That's right. We take chains for the Deepwater Gruin. I always forget that we count the Deepwater Gruin as negative efficiency because of its requirement to take chains. So try to keep that in mind. It counts Beach Day as some disruption. It's more creature control because it returns a creature to the hand. So I guess this counts that as disruption. I'm not sure. But anyway, we got that pretty well. Let's look at the synergies and anti-synergies here. We got that 50% synergy with Little Nif because we have things that cause fighting. Scott, Teresa, and Operative Espion can use things, you know, in a way that lets us use them off house, potentially, and then that could have more fighting. Those could be next to Little Nif. So we might get a good use out of Little Nif in this deck. That's a possibility. For the Fangtooth Cavern, here we go. Minus 110% as we thought. That's a huge amount of anti-synergy. That's what really holds this deck back. I don't know if we'll see anything else that's that high. Blossom Drake has minus 45% because we have a few artifacts. We have Secret Needles and the Fangtooth. Fangtooth we don't care about, we're not going to play it. The Secret Needles, we might, depending on how many low power creatures our opponent has, we might want to utilize those. So, but I think the Blossom Drake is kind of better to have on the board to disrupt artifacts. It really depends on our opponent's deck list. Looking at this, we have 83% good efficiency with Scott because we have things that cause reaping. We have Teresa, Operative Espion, Reaper, so we have ways of using Scott off house too, which is great. And then we have Mylobe, things that raise the tide, Freebooter Fae, Embervac, and all tied up. have some good synergy with that to 75%. 70% efficiency with Way of the Pixie. Again, we have ways of causing reaping off house, and nothing else significant down here. So yeah, we did a good job of calling it. So the things we need to do really, you know, I want to make sure to note how many direct chains we have on the cards, but also these soft chains with like Deepwater Gruin. Because, you know, this is a card where you're pretty much always going to play it with taking the tide, right? So I think keeping that in mind, keeping in mind the cards that pretty much want, in practice, pretty much want to take the tide is kind of a thing we'll have to get used to with this set. So what did you guys guess? Did you get close? Did you go, I want to know, you know, if you want to post in the comments what your thought process is about valuing some of these aspects in the deck's SAS score. So go ahead and leave a comment, and if you like this video, I appreciate a like, and if you want to see more of this content, please subscribe. I will see you all in the next one. Have a great day. Bye-bye.